Good evening, everybody. We're going to call to order the 16th Committee of the Whole Budget Meeting. We are in our workplaces. We're 6 feet apart. We're double vaxxed. We've got some ventilation, so if council would like to remove their masks, you can do so now. Very good. We begin the meeting of the Committee of the Whole by acknowledging that we are meeting on Aboriginal land that has been inhabited by Indigenous peoples from the beginning. Long before today, as we gather here, there have been Aboriginal peoples who have been stewards of this place. In particular, we acknowledge the traditional territory of the Anishtabek, Huron-Wendat, and the Haudenosaunee peoples. The adoption of the agenda is moved by Councillor Card, seconded by Councillor Cardy, that the agenda for the 16th meeting of the Committee of the Whole for November 23rd, 2021 be adopted as presented. All in favor? Any declarations of conflict or pecuniary interest? Seeing none, this is our first meeting of our budget, setting our budget for 2022. There'll be at least 3 meetings. And just remind everybody that we do it in chunks. Tonight, the chunk is capital. So when we're working our way through things, we have questions for staff. We ask for confirmation. We need more information. They'll bring it back to the next meeting. I turn the meeting over to the treasurer so that the questions don't go through me. They go directly to Mr. White, and that makes it easier for everybody. So, of course, Mr. Evans is here. I think Mr. Evans is going to carry a lot of the technical side of the meeting for Mr. White, and we'll see where we end up. So that being said, Mr. White, go ahead, please.
Thank you. As the mayor mentioned, tonight's capital, we did distribute a project list with the costs involved. Some of those costs have changed, and what I've distributed tonight is a more detailed list for the general and the water of the projects, and we'll go through those lists with you, those budgets. They include revenues and expenditures for capital. First, I'll just mention a couple of relevant points on the capital budget. Currently, the village's infrastructure is underfunded. So one thing I'd like to point out is that if we can raise the amount of our capital budgets on a yearly basis, transfers to reserves, projects and equipment, it'll serve the village. There's no new borrowing for this capital budget, either one. So that's an important point. There's a 3% increase in capital revenues on the water side, as was done at the previous meeting. So those revenues have been captured. And the OSIF grant and infrastructure grant for the province is doubled to $100,000, and that's noted in the budget as well. So we'll start with the general budget, and it's labeled Village of Westport General Fund Draft Budget at the top. And you can see that there at the columns at the top, there's starts with actual of 2018 and goes across to include budget 2021, projected 2021, and budget 2022. So in the first section there that you see are the revenues related to capital. Quite a big difference from last year, obviously, with the Bedford Street project, a $2 million project that we don't have anything like that on the books for this year. So the first item for 2022 under revenues is $21,000. That's the efficiency reserves that we're bringing into revenues for streetlights and public works. And the next item is the Lockwood Foundation, $10,000. and there's a corresponding entry on the expense side. And then there's the website and kiosk, for which there is a grant. So on the revenue side, I put in 15,000 based on a more moderate update of the website and the inclusion of a kiosk in the info center. And then the last item under revenues is transfer from reserves for the official plan. And there's a corresponding expenditure for that. Under capital projects and equipment, we have a 10-year financial plan transfer to reserve 4.5% of the levy. There's 15,000 in there for that. And depending on where the levy ends up, that may be adjusted slightly. Now, council may or may not be aware of Regulation 588. Regulation 588 has been delayed a year. Originally, it was to come into force on July 1st, 2021. It's been put off until July 1st, 2022, but it requires us to update our asset management plan. And so we've put $15,000 in for that to be done by a third-party firm, engineering firm. The next item on the list is computer replacement, $7,500. We need to replace another workstation next year. And there's usually some network equipment that needs replacing some point during the year. This year, we had to replace a backup server and another piece of network equipment. So it's prudent to budget for something like that. A little bit of money. The next item, Peter might be able to speak to this. Mr. Evans, arena paved rear lot, we have $7,500. Long-term debt principal. On the general side, there's only two loans. One is for Church Street and the other is for Bedford Street, which, if council remembers, we're actually borrowing from the water side for that. So that totals $18,000, the principal portion. There's a corresponding interest portion that will be under operating. The next item is capital paving, $50,000. After that, there is EV charging station of $10,000, of which $5,000 will come from reserves.
Excuse me?
Yeah. You want questions as we go through, or because I've got lots? Or do you want to go through it first and then come back?
We're most of the way through.
Okay.
Might as well continue on, if that's okay.
I'm looking at the EV charging station. NR can zip, what's that?
I imagine that's a federal program. I think Mr. Evans could probably speak to that.
I can confirm that's the program that offers this funding for this type of work.
So they'll give the other 5,000 and we take 5,000 from reserves then?
No, they've offered like a bulk pricing where we've been able to purchase this for $10,000, and it's based on a much larger project with hundreds of chargers.
In essence, it gives us a volume discount.
Yes.
Okay.
The next item relates to the harbor, continuing the docking repairs. Some similar amount was done last year. There's $30,000 for that. And then Lockwood, the Serenity Garden. I'm not sure whether the design phase is complete or not.
I lost that because underneath that, we didn't do
Flip over.
Yes. Yeah, apologies, flip the page.
forward.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Lockwood, $10,000 for the garden development. Official plan, $12,500 from reserve is for that, but the total cost would be $25,000. And the next item is a wheel loader. There's $75,000 in here, and $45,000 is in the water budget, which is, we'll discuss next. And this yields approximately $24,000 in operating savings because we rent the current loader. So there's about a 4 to 5 year payback by buying a loader, and that's one of the prime rationales for this piece of equipment. Road sidewalk OADA repairs, $25,000. Speed monitor and traffic counter, $15,000. A sand and salt storage shed, $75,000. $5,000 for the boardroom flooring upstairs. Again, the OADA website update and kiosk, of which is 75% funded. So there's $15,000 in grant revenues and $20,000 in for the project expenditures. And $9,000 for the public works truck for the efficiency reserve payback. So capital projects, the total is 412. The revenues total 58.5. So there's a net deficit of 353.5. Okay.
So can we go over these before we ingest any more information here?
Yes.
Quick question right up front. Projected for 2021 is $100,000 short of budgeted for 2021 in revenues. But
Where you have to,
first line, capital revenues, provincial Ontario grant. I'm just wondering about this year, why you're projecting $100,000 less than what we budgeted for in revenues. Very first line.
Oh, Bedford Street?
Well, it's yeah.
Okay. The expenditures for Bedford Street, which are down below, did come under budget. And there was also some water-related work that was not permitted under the grant, which was reported earlier.
So you're saying that it was taken off the grant, so that they subtracted that amount from the grant?
Yes.
so can we, if you don't mind, Mr. White, can we go back through them like item by item and ask our questions? Because I think it would be easier and we're not walking over each other.
Yes.
All right. So the next question I have is around efficiency reserve. Anybody have something before that? So the efficiency reserve, if I understand it right, is this the streetlights?
Streetlights and public works truck.
So help us understand, I just don't know, so the efficiency reserve, we're putting 26.9 into that reserve in 2021. And we're budgeting 21,000, so we've got 5,900 less that we are paying ourselves back for those two items. Have we paid something off?
No, it's 21,000 is the yearly amount. 5,900 is, I believe, is a one-off for 2021. I'll look into that.
Okay. So we borrowed money for the streetlights from ourselves, but from our reserves, and so we're putting it back into reserves. Just so I want to make sure that counselors understand what this line means when it's called efficiency reserves. We had money to buy the truck out of reserves, we had money to do the streetlights out of reserves,
Right,
but we have to pay it back because we've got to build our reserves up. That's what this is for.
yes.
Okay. And then my next question is the next line, Lockwood funding Serenity Garden. So Lockwood Foundation matching funds. So we have, what are we budgeting $10,000 for in? Is that part of your, is $20,000 going to your project or 10?
10 was committed last
Yeah.
year to the project. This is on the revenue side, so
All right,
I don't know where that's coming from.
help us understand that.
So I was working from last year where we received revenues from the Lockwood Foundation and we spent those, spent about the same amount of money.
So this is the bit that we get to help with the annual maintenance.
Okay,
Okay, we can circle back because they continue, Mr. Snyder, is it around 12 that they give us every year for maintenance? And that's been a long standing agreement, which isn't the Lockwood Foundation matching funds. That's a different stream of money that they're not providing any more to. We're just being careful how we spend it. But that ended in 18.
okay.
So it's been pretty stagnant since 18, but Councillor Card needed money for the Serenity Garden, so we went and donated $10,000 to the cause. So we can flesh that out before the next meeting.
Okay.
So the next is revenue.
Excuse me, can we go back,
Sure.
can we go back to the Lockwood Foundation? So they're not funding the Serenity Garden. We got a special donation for the Serenity Garden, didn't we?
Different item.
Yeah, this is this item here, you'll see it next time, it will be explained better. This is the maintenance for the park to pay our contract for the lawn to get cut.
Okay.
The matching funds that we raised money from whatever years they were, 15 to 18, is a separate line. We took $10,000 of that and gave it to the current Parks and Rec Committee for Serenity. Then they got the bequeathment. So, you know, if they don't spend their money, they know that we can use it somewhere else in Lockwood, but we did commit at council $10,000 to Serenity, but that'll show somewhere.
But the
else.
follow through here is we budgeted the 10,000 in 2021. So 2022, why are we budgeting another 10,000?
I think the confusion is in relation to the contract to cut the lawn. We'll fix it for the next meeting.
Well, it should go on the
Deficit.
debit side, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I sent Joe and yourself
Yeah.
and Paul some information about
Yeah.
the
Good. Okay, so really on that, we've understand the efficiency reserve. We wanted to make sure Councillor Cardy knew what we had done in the past to borrow from ourselves. The item for matching Lockwood Foundation, we'll tidy up for the next meeting. We know that we've got, so we're showing 15,000 revenue for the website and kiosk because you expect it'll be about 12,000 is what we're budgeting for expenses.
20.
20. So we'll get
15
15,
grand,
right, I had it right in my
5,000.
mind to begin with, right? Okay,
Had we not decided though that we're going to cut back on that?
that is cut back.
So we
It
think
was
we're
47 or something at
It
the
was
last meeting. And we
30
cut it.
some thousand.
Yeah. Yet to be fleshed out, and the official plan is 12.5,
That's revenue.
That must be great.
because that's in reserve.
That's in reserves.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Okay, so we could write in reserve, just so we know it's coming from
From
our
reserve.
reserve. And it's the reserves for the official plan.
Yes.
We put the money aside, we haven't spent
Carry
it, so it's carried over. Okay, can we go down to expenditures now? So the 10-year financial plan, 4.5% of levy to reserve, is sort of not debatable. We can always debate it, but we knew we had to bite the bullet and start putting money in the savings account. And so that's what that represents. And you know, we did it in the COVID year. We didn't do it the year before in the first year.
We didn't do it this year either.
No, not 2021, it's got a 0.
It's got a 0 in it, just because we're not at the end of the year yet. If we end up with a surplus, it will be done, that transfer.
The column is projected, so we would be looking to the end of the year with a projected number, would we not?
The transfers to reserves are, you know, you either do them or you don't, basically. And if you have the money, you do them. So that's why there's a 0 in there.
So I guess my question would be, having the numbers to look at as where we stand right now and projecting everything else, can you see us having any money for reserves?
Yes, at this point, but we're still month and a half out, so I do expect to make that transfer.
Okay, so it's probably not 0, it's probably unknown, I think, for clarity, just for us. Okay, so unknown or question mark. So then the asset inventory management plan, this is huge. This is the biggest change in infrastructure in the province. And so we need to think through how to do this really well. So I'm kind of speaking on behalf of getting it right, because when we get to page 2 and we talk about the OSIF grants, that has changed 100%. So up until this year, there was 25% of the 300 million or whatever that was application based, and the other part formula. Our formula has been 25,000 this previous year, 50,000, and now they're doubling it to 100, which sounds like terrific news. However, there is no more application. So what we have used for Bedford Street and all the other applications, there is no more applications. It will all be based on your asset management plan and need, so they say, and need. So although we've written in 100,000 because we know at minimum we're going to get that, it will depend on how well, really, it's a little gray, quite frankly, and I sit on lots of committees where I can ask questions to clear up the gray for us. And so we're working on that, but it will be an assessment of what your asset inventory and your asset management plan. So we can talk more, Peter. I'd like you to talk to people who are a lot smarter than me, for sure, on what is it looking for. Because I've been asking, is there a template? Is there a standardized form that, and as of yet, the answer is no. But what we've done in the past, we really need to do this well in order to get OSIF, more OSIF money than the 100,000. It's not that we're not really pleased that money has, but that is the only infrastructure money we're guaranteed because we can't apply. Now, if the feds come on board and they have a joint project, we hope they will, that will still be application based. But we've always had 2 cracks at it, OSIF and whatever the acronym they put in front of the federal, provincial. So just on the point, regulation 588, you're right, Joe. It's been nebulous. We've kind of tried to keep it out there during COVID. It's coming in this year.
Our AMP, if you look at it, it's not accurate at all. I mean, and I went over it today just to refresh my memory, but it looks like there is a template and we filled in the blanks. We just didn't use realistic numbers. I mean, we still show our docks at, we have a study that says our docks are done, and we have a AMP that says that there's 40% life left in them. So, and I mean, I think the key thing with an asset management plan is to have realistic numbers. you don't want to look any better than you are, and you don't want to look
That's
any
right.
worse than you are.
Yeah.
You want to, it has to be a true picture of what's going on. And I think you could probably pick out many items in our asset management plan that
Yeah.
just, I mean, just for the layperson could look at it and say, that's not right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and the other thing I think is that we should be more involved, staff, in putting those numbers in there. I mean, you bring somebody in from outside, takes a walk around town, you know, and takes a quick look at your camera view of your sewer and water system and what have you, and they throw a number on it. I don't really think that holds a lot of water. I think there should be some true values put on it as to what it would cost to replace it. The replacement cost for the arena shows at $5.8 million. Well, I'd say it's probably more like $10 million based on what other people are paying for arenas. So I think that if we needed to train somebody on staff or just had an arrangement where we could go out, just get a number from the people that are best educated on each topic instead of taking a whole bunch of numbers from a consultant that's, you know, he's going to get the numbers from somebody else too, but he's going to get generic numbers. I think we need numbers that apply to the village more than we've been seeing. So,
Well, Councillor Card, you're absolutely right on several points, and in particular, it has to reflect the depreciation and the replacement cost based on what we now know OSIP money is going to be calculated on. So it's a big job. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to drag it down. Let's hope 15 grand is enough, but we need to nail this properly. So I'd suggest you talk to TTLI. They've just done a one, and that mayor just says they passed their budget in one meeting because they just got such a great process that they're using for asset management plan. So, you know, maybe start there, and because it's got to be a living plan as well. So and get an idea of what it costs. I absolutely agree with Councillor Card. We've got to get this right.
well, I don't think we have any plan right now. We don't update on it. It's not a living plan. It's the plan that was born 3 years ago, and
And that
2
one was
years it'll be
born.
born again, another
Yeah,
2 years.
That's
but
right.
We need to have it living, so plug the numbers in each year.
Yeah, I agree. So capital paving on the general side, that kind of goes in with sidewalks when we flip it over. The budget to do paving, could we just get a little bit more detail on this?
You still on that page?
From Mr. Evans?
To 50,000, is
Yeah.
that what you're looking at?
What's the plan?
Through Joe, so this is the number that is coming back. It was born out of the 2018 street scan report. So the 2018 street scan report, where they came in, they actually shot all the roads, did what a PCI pavement condition index on every street in the village. And they identified that at $2018, the village should be investing about $40,000 to $45,000 per year in paving. So the 2018 and 2019 were both significantly less than that in general paving. And now the village, of course, repaved a significant street length with Bedford Street. However, that was excluded in 2018, as we knew at that point that we were looking at that project coming up. So with based on actual real world 2018 figures, it is recommended that it's 40,000 to 45,000. So at this point, we've set 50,000 as a slightly stronger placeholder. It may not be realistic for this year, but it is born out of a study.
How does this work exactly? If frontwards or backwards, do we get the money and then try to spend it, or do we pick out areas of concern? Or do you have a list from your asset management plan that would say this area requires paving?
So what we have is, out of that street scan, we actually have numerical values for streets where pavement's really bad. Prioritized based on their condition. Now then, staff can go in and we can weight them a little bit heavier. For example, Spring Street might weigh heavier than Lakeview based on houses, just pulling two numbers out. However, something like Spring Street is something that would be better to do as part of a larger project. So we get an actual overhead map. We can adjust the numbers for street, we can adjust the numbers for segments. Now, at this point, being that we're almost at the starting point of this larger project, and just based on our size, we're not doing full street reconstructions on our own. We aren't replacing 3 streets this year out of our network of 150 streets this year. We're gonna be doing small, short, 1/4 segments of streets to start to get those really rough areas up and running. We go forward.
Yeah, I didn't see in this list, you had that prioritized somewhere in Cherokee.
I can re-pull the 2018 street scan report and have the map, and I can show you the numbers that kicked out.
That'd be helpful for
Yeah,
the
it
next
would be.
meeting. Yeah. But what the point I wanted to get on the paper here for counselors to understand that there was a study done. So you know, there's some science to what we're doing. And we understand that the cost. So we've already, in this year's budget, 2021, we have earmarked $5,000 for the chargers. Is that what this says? And so in order to put them in, they cost 10,000 or they cost 15.
Our share 10,000.
10,000, okay, just because you've got 5,000 from reserve, so 5,000 that would come from reserve. Okay. So then we can go to the next page. You all right with the harbor there, Councillor Cart?
No. I think the harbor's been taking a back seat as a, I'm not gonna say a profitable venture, but a venture that carries itself from year to year. And we've spent for the last, if you go back to 2018, 25,000, 2019, 20,000. And this year, I think it's gonna be around between
36.
30,000, somewhere around there. We might get up to our, I think we just spent 26,000 on electrical, did we not? So we really didn't.
Yeah, right.
We're not getting ahead, is what I'm saying. All we're doing is trying to keep up. We need to get to the point and give the harbor its fair recognition and try to build on what we have instead of just try to nail boards on and change wires and keep it going. I think that it's demonstrated that it can carry its own weight, and we should recognize that and budget accordingly. So we all saw what 30,000 would do. How many feet of dock, Peter? You did give me an estimate one time as to how many feet of dock 30,000 would produce.
20 to 24.
So that's a lot of years. So by the time we get to this end of the dock, this end's going to be wore out again. I think we need to devote more dollars to it, because it is I'd say a cash cow, but we put more money into things that aren't going to produce a dollar for us. So I really think that we should consider taking that up to $50,000 for this year, even if we have to cut something else that doesn't produce.
Comments? Or just we'll earmark it for 50 and then arm wrestle later? We'll get answers, yes? Okay, Mr. White?
Good.
Okay. And we understand the Serenity, let's just leave Lockwood for now, and we'll figure that out. And so when we get to the OP is going to cost us around 25 grand. We've already got 12.5 tucked away, so we need 12.5 out of 2022.
Yes.
And the RFP's gone out. We're way behind on getting this done by several years. Just saying.
We should, Your Worship, we should have firm numbers by December 10th.
Great. So you talked a little bit about the savings. Could we just have a little bit more detail now, Mr. White? We're getting into your Peter's area, yes. The wheel loader purchase. I understand it's gonna cost 75 grand. And 45 of that's gonna come from the water budget. So we have to pay 30 and we're gonna eventually make back 24 out of cost avoidance.
So the total cost of a wheel loader is budgeted at 75 on the general side plus 45 from the water side for 120,000.
So it's 120 total.
And this is spread over 5 years, so is it?
Yeah, or no, it would be purchased in 2022.
Well, you said there was no borrowing involved, so I take it we're gonna just put it against the general levy and pay cash for this thing?
That could be the case, yes. Once we get
I
into the
thought we-
operating, we'll have a better understanding.
I thought we'd looked at before, we looked at kind of lease to own or rent to own or.
That's another option,
So we'll tie this together when we get the operating.
yes.
What's a wheel loader?
It's a really fun thing.
Thing that makes all the noise come by your house.
Well, is it like a front end loader
Yeah.
or, okay, it's basically a front end loader to
Big
put
bucket on it.
the bucket to put stuff in the truck.
The orange tractor that we have.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another question, will that be the machine we have or a new machine off the shelf?
That is planned for a new machine. Originally, it was deemed to try to attempt the same way as the sidewalk machine where we
Yeah.
rented for the year, we rented as we go on, and we would purchase out that machine. Unfortunately, the machine we had previously was sold, and we're struggling to get suitable, good equipment in the way the market is right now. So we bumped that figure up a little bit. We had quotes for under 100,000 based on the end of last year's wheel loader rental. However, the suppliers are struggling to get machines right now. Such even talking about some different manufacturers where there's maybe one of these machines left in Ontario as of the end of October.
So you're thinking of going out to Canoe or someplace like that and just get a competitive bid for this? And would that include, Peter, in your estimation, would that include the current attachments? You'd have the same tools to work with that you have now?
That's the goal, that's correct. So the only I'll say standard attachments that we carry are a couple of forks, which are relatively inexpensive on the project, and the plow itself, which is less than 10% of the overall, so. And we
So
can-
could somebody have Plan B ready for us for the next meeting so we could look at that and see what that would cost?
And plan B comes in at the next meeting, which is the operating meeting, and that's the other side that we need to hear as well. Okay. So I'm making lots of notes, things we have to come back to in the operating meeting. So sidewalks, we're hoping for 25,000 this year. That's straightforward. Speed monitor and traffic counter.
ODAD is
Accessible.
accessibility. Okay.
That traffic counter, that seems like a lot of money, Peter. When I just looked on the GIS website for the county today, and there are numbers there already. What are we looking for that?
So this is a carryover. It was an item that was ranked as a priority 3 under the previous ranking system. It was a specific request to investigate for some of the side streets. Now, the difference this year, I would still rank it as a priority 3, and I don't want to mix previous rankings from Mr. White's method here. I would still put it as a low priority item for this year's budget. However, it's worth mentioning that with the new programs from the province for enforcement of speed zones and community safety zones, with a project that Mr. Snyder was working on through LAS, this would fall in the same category. So we don't know if there's going to be anything that comes out of that program. But regardless, whether it's for side streets, monitoring and checking for speed, or whether it's for the LAS program, I would still rank this relatively low on a priority list.
So when I look at the GIS, I mean, they've given traffic counts. I think the latest was 2019 for County Road 10, 36, 12, and then they leave it up to you to try to, investigate what comes into Westport and what stays in Westport, what goes through Westport, and what routes they use to go through Westport. So I thought they're quite interesting numbers. But you're looking at, if this ever did go, you're looking at doing side streets and some kind of speed monitoring too, so.
So this, those devices do monitor speed as well. The county only publishes counters, and just before I get ahead of myself, I'm not 100% sure that the county ones do speed, but typically a unit like this, we would use it for speed and traffic monitoring for these side streets. When we get complaints about people driving too fast down whatever street, we go out, install this box, and it would give us times, speeds, and counts. We also use that for those asset management plans for road priorities, and we use it for grant applications for the same when they look for traffic counts. Again, I'm coming full circle. What we've been using in the past is the county road GIS and estimating traffic, which has been acceptable up till now. This was initially brought forward for complaint response, and it's just held on for.
So it would seem to make more sense in a place that had their own police force and that could concentrate on those areas, because I doubt we'll ever be scheduling OPP attendance to anything in the village, so.
It hasn't fallen down yet. It's a shame. Why don't you think of like a 5-year plan for this though? And, put $7,000 or $8,000 away a year, so at least we build a reserve.
Yeah, I was thinking of taking like that 20,000 right out of there and putting it towards the harbor. The harbor is going to return on our investment. How many yards of sand and salt do we go through a year? Would we go through 100 yards of sand and salt?
Councilor, we go through about 240 ton.
So 10 truckloads. So, I mean, if it all sat out in the rain and didn't freeze, we could probably still deal with it. In your estimation, then, will it keep the rain off the salt and sand for 5 years?
It could fall over tomorrow.
Well,
But it could stay up for 10 years. We've all seen, I think, actually, Councilor Card, I think you'd actually probably be as good of an estimate on its life as I would be. None of the material is covered, or if it was coated, it's long gone. Some of the trusses are broken inside. The roof's there, it's keeping the rain out. There's no doors, there's no bottom. That's the biggest thing for the salt from our point of view for public works. For the salt that we use for the sidewalk machine, we actually put it in the back of town hall in the garage here because it's got a concrete floor. That's not going to last forever. Salt does like to eat concrete, but it's
yeah, I really think too that we should have been planning ahead 20 years ago, but we should start planning ahead. And a 5-year plan for a $75,000 building seems to make sense to me. I mean, $15,000 a year we can afford, or I'm not a big fan, and we're just getting to the point. It was great to hear the treasurer say that there's no borrowing involved for capital this year. Well, I think that's something that everybody's been looking forward to, is hearing that. So myself, I'd rather bite the bullet and for the next 5 years or 4 years or whatever you think. I mean, even if we could get past the halfway mark and then deal with it. If we could get 2 or 3 years more out of that shed, that would be my take on the subject. So
A couple of things. We're going to do a proper asset management plan, and that will help us with our decisions. And be driven by that. So And the price 75,000, is that prefabricated? Like, is that the material? Is that a hard price? Seems like a lot of
That
dough
was for
for,
sea cans and,
So that would be for, most of that is the concrete floor itself, so a thick pad that takes the weight. And then, there's instead of a precast or a formed concrete sides, as you've seen some of the other buildings around.
Yeah.
By the North Cross Street Garage. This would be what, anchor concrete called waste blocks, so big concrete blocks. So I've used a building similar to this before. And then, with 75,000 be a more permanent, structure for the overall, to be a canvas type building with a roof, two sides and a rear side.
I think we need to start, but I mean, so here's the thing for me, it'll just get tossed. It's too expensive, you know, when we roll up the budget, we'll say, well, where can we find 150,000, well, we'll take 75. I think even coming along with what you said, Councilor Card, even put 5 in there to start. And, you know, if we gotta grab 1,000, we can, but at least we recognize that we need to do something. My fear is with 75, it'll just get pulled. And then we're another year out of doing anything.
The intent of putting it on here is just to raise the discussion, as you said, not necessarily to leave the 75 in and do it, but to raise the issue that we need to do something. And that there's lots of options, as you said, do it over 5 years or.
Well, why don't we plug in 10 grand for now?
I go with that.
Go with that? Yeah, all right. I'm just skipping over the next one.
Last year it was only 3,000.
I know.
So it's gone up in price.
Well, we could arm wrestle at some other point. Town hall
That's one
website.
example.
Oh, so this is the, yeah, so can we just, we've talked about that at our last meeting, where we pulled it down to a $20,000 project. I did speak to our website, our webmaster, and she has said it's not something that she can do. So we'll have to look at other options. So maybe we should just leave that amount there for now until we get a better idea.
I think the 20 is a lot more tasteful than the 35,000.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it'll be 20. I'm working on an option right now. I've reached out to a couple of other firms on doing an AOD update on our website and providing a kiosk.
Okay.
I think it'll come in less than that, but
that's good.
it'll be
Great.
a week or two before I get some
Okay.
numbers.
Oh, that's good. That's good
Yes,
news.
glad you're pursuing it.
Yeah. And then efficiency, we just talked about that on the revenue side, right? Clear as mud. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Joe. I have to slow down and catch up with you there. Okay, so we'll let you pick it up again. Do you want to do it one by one though, rather than we're coming down the water, wastewater,
Yeah, that's fine.
whatever you feel comfortable with. Joe.
Sure, we'll try it that way.
10 items or so.
Line by line. So feel free to ask questions as we go. And the first line item, it's laid out the same as the general capital budget. Revenues first. So we do have on the water side, we do have capital revenues. So under water charges, there's a monthly charge for water and sewer, and there's also a capital charge for water and sewer. This line item represents those capital charges. The 3% increase in the overall water charges for next year, so it's everything, 3%, is all being diverted to capital because we recognize that there's an underfunding of the infrastructure, water infrastructure. We have a lot of it now, and it's good to put some more money away for that. So you can see that there is an increase. Budgeted for 2021 was 165, and now we're up to 198. Part of that is the 3% increase on the capital revenues. So the 3% being diverted into there. Plus, we're also recognizing some new housing lots from the subdivision will come online next year. So those combined will bring those capital revenues up to 198,795. The next item on there is the OC formula grant for the SCADA, and that's $100,000.
So that's not quite the way I understand it. This is our OSIF formula grant for wastewater, water, roads, bridges. So because in years gone by, all of the formula went to water, wastewater, which made sense. I'm just flagging for everybody that this is all we're getting from OSIF unless we do a cracking good asset management plan. So it can sit there, but it may well be that we need it for something else next year. Does that make sense, Peter?
And so, Your Worship, I just, at this point, the project we have approved is the water and wastewater SCADA as a whole. Now we can use the OSIF for our share of Glen Street, and the SCADA is almost half of that total project. So out of the asset management plan in 2022, council, we need to set up a new project for OSIF, was my understanding, and the way this new grant is going to work. It was based on formula, but we need to demonstrate the project we're going to apply it to.
That's part of it. But how much you get is based on your asset management plan. So it may be that if we were only going to get 50, that's what you were counting on, was 50, right? And then in the fall statement, they doubled it to 100.
So they doubled the new minimum, to my understanding.
Right. That's right. Yeah, we're saying the same thing still.
Okay, perfect. So
Yeah.
double the new minimum. If we can, when we change the project, we'll see in that project that will cover the end of our SCADA project at this point. So in 2022, 100%, it'll be hugely based on, if not solely based on the asset management plan, to my understanding. We need the next project to start putting this OSIF money away for, and that's the point where we may be able to apply for over the 100, but we need to have a new project for next year. That's going to come to
I
that.
agree with everything you said. We're not applying it though. We may be applying it to a project, but we're not filling out an application. Yeah, okay. So I think what I heard you say is, and maybe for the next capital meeting, you could come back and say, if we put our whole OSIF grant towards the SCADA, we're out of there with no borrowing, and it's all done and paid for. I think that would go a long way. We probably support that.
So this is we're gonna put this against the $600,000 project? Is that?
What are you saying? Yeah.
Okay, so, and do all the councilors know what this $600,000 project is?
Probably not.
Well, we should know, it's $600,000. So maybe Peter, take a minute and just tell us what the upgrades are
With
gonna
the
be.
grant, yeah.
It is on here a little further down. So under the capital projects, it is the second line there. And so this project is the Glen Street Modernization Program, to which we got funding for. And Glen Street, so what's going to happen there is the existing pumping station is going to be upgraded with a new SCADA system, which allows us to actually do some remote monitoring. Right now, we just get a general alarm out. We don't know what the problem is, and we're not getting all of the alarms. We rely on neighbors to call us for some of the lights and buzzing alarms that don't run through anything because it's simple phone line. So that will bring that component into the current century and get us some actual operations. The SCADA will also do the data logging for the water distribution analyzers that are there, It'll do tracking for the flow monitoring and the meters, and it will control the pumps that are in the station. It'll also control a new grinder that is planned to be added in the manhole upstream, which will stop the damage that's happening to the magnetic flow meter that's there. These pumps were new installed in 2010, and they're designed to pass solid material up the force main, and that has been hitting and breaking the mag meter there. It will also install a variable frequency drive, which will allow the pumps to run slower, which hopefully will, because which I should mention this first. There was also originally planned a third pump there that would run at a lower flow, so that instead of having the pumps turn on and turn off dozens of times per day, there would be one pump that would run all day, which would stop the surging for the force main, hopefully significantly reduce the force main breaks. That was one of the driving factors behind this upgrade, and packaging them all together. So a grinder that will break down the debris, and to stop the starting and stopping of these pumps all day. The engineers are working right now, based on their calculations. The pumps that are there can run efficiently at a lower enough speed that we wouldn't need to add the third pump. So there'll be a little bit of savings there. But SCADA will control all of that. It'll do the logic. It'll figure out when it wants to start and what speed it wants to run at as it's going.
And generator?
Oh, sorry, and power generator too,
Okay.
just back up, so replace the aging generator there as well.
And so the amount of grant from the government is?
It is 67% of the total project. The original, I know, I think on the previous paper, it was from Anne-Marie's number, the original conservative estimate was 600,000 for the whole project. The total project right now is sitting in the 360 to 370, making our share lower, and of course eligible for wholesale. So we are right now looking at $120,000 portion from the village,
Nice. Nice,
Which
which is
100,000.
yeah. Good explanation. Everybody happy with that?
Yeah, thank you.
Good, all right. We like it when it works out that way that. But I think give us a chance again to reaffirm how important the asset management plan is going to be moving forward. All right, so that was 100,000 gas tax credit.
So the gas tax, in 2021, we budgeted about 18,000 for it, but we received double, 36,700. Now, normally all that's applied to the water tower rehabilitation to fund the payment of that grant, payment of that loan, sorry, yes. So what I've proposed is that in 2021, we apply about 29,000 of the 36,700 that we got to the water tower. That's the total principal cost of the loan. And that was due to be funded partly by capital revenues on the water side. So that portion of capital revenues is now freed up and can go to reserves to be used in ways that we want. So we can apply those extra monies from the gas grant to the water tower. It still leaves about $7,600 extra to apply to the same loan payment, the water tower, in 2022. So 7,600 plus we're getting about $18,000 and change, leaves us with 26,300 that we're getting in 2022 that we can apply.
So the principal for that, the loan payment, annual loan payment for that is how much about?
It's about 29,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the extra 7,500 from 2021 will go to offset
And-
the loan payment in 2022.
Right,
Good.
most of it,
Okay.
yeah.
How long are we committed to that phone?
Off the top of
It was
your
quite lengthy, wasn't it?
head.
I thought I saw it somewhere, but I
I do too.
can't find it.
If you give me a minute, I'll go and pull that info.
He just let us know the next one, but it's just kind of interesting, to know how long we're gonna carry that
Sure.
burden.
But
Oh, here it is. Oh, wait a minute. So that, the stuff we had previous to the meeting, long-term debt, drinking water, principal debt payments, water treatment, water tower. 2025 is what I've got, Joe. I'm on
Yeah, I thought
the,
it was 2028 for some reason. I like your numbers better.
I'm just looking at the handout that we looked at overnight. On the second page of what was stapled together, it's got drinking water at the top, long-term debt. And it was 2006 and both are ending at 2025. Yeah,
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 2025. Budget 6253.
so
That's it.
that's nice. Bit by bit. Could you talk a little bit about gas tax and just so that give Councilor Carney the Cole's notes of.
sure. The federal gas tax is a portion of the HST that the federal government remits to all municipalities each year. It's guaranteed money, and there's other than I mean, we have to report on projects for it, so it's basically for infrastructure. But yes, it's ongoing, and there's a middle term commitment. I think it's a 5-year commitment by the federal government on the level of funding. I think it's built out to 2024 right now. And it goes up every year, so we do have an increase.
Just a banner year last year when they doubled it.
Yes,
Yeah, thank you. It's based on how many roads we've got or something, mileage? Somehow, isn't it? Somehow?
I'd have to check back on the material.
I looked at some of the numbers for other municipalities, and it looked to me like it was arbitrary. It was just,
Now, some has got to do with this, they support the transit systems as well.
It could be population, I'm thinking. The next item is previous year's capital projects unspent. So between the SCADA project and the chlorine contact project, there's monies from previous years that are unspent, 143,000 total. So those are being brought into revenues because both those projects are under the expenditure section as proceeding. So they're largely being funded by these monies from previous years.
So the SCADA, so Peter, could you help us with that line? That's referring to it's in water, right? So just bring everybody up to speed again on what it's for.
So council's been putting away money significantly last year for Glen Street and SCADA of 75,000. So that was a big put aside last year for this total project. And the rest of it is from increasing the contact time at the plant. We're still working on projects. We have an actual drawing that's gone to the Ministry of Environment to get inserted into our drinking water license. However, we're just still 1 foot in front of the other getting that project going. So council's committed between 15 and 35,000 year over year from 18, 19, and 20, and we're carrying it for this year. We're getting that project
And the results of that project at the water plant would be,
So the primary result for operations is we're going to be bringing the contact chamber, contact pipe into the water plant. So right now, we have to dose chlorine a little high to make sure that it is properly disinfected by the time it gets to the first customer. Practically speaking, that makes it difficult when we run into operation problems where we're flushing a lot back. And it makes better operational sense to control that water before we go out. So we're going to increase the size of the contact chamber, which means we can lower our dose. And we're also going to move that into a pipe within the water treatment plant building itself, so that we have full control of it before it goes out the door, if you will. So it's a project consisting mostly of piping within the building.
and the consequence of adding that on the washroom?
Was that, so the washrooms now at Lockwood have been closed permanently. And they are being relocated under this project, under the water fund, to the back of the fire hall. So that was council approved in July.
Yes.
And so for springtime, the public washrooms for Lockwood would move to the fire hall.
Okay, perfect. Everybody okay with that then? All right. Good. All right. Thank you, sir. You're going to go down to,
So now we're down to the expenditure section, and the first two items Mr. Evans just spoke to was improving the chlorine contact time and the Glen Street upgrades.
are you still okay?
The next item was water meters, 30,000. If I recall correctly, we did apply for a grant this year, municipal modernization program, number 3. We applied for water meters under that. So it's contingent upon getting that grant, which we think is a good candidate for the program.
How many meters would that buy? $30,000.
So, Councilor, that would be our share of a larger grant that would replace all the meters in the village that haven't already been replaced to the new style.
Okay.
So there's about 220 meters left to replace.
That's good. That's good.
The next item is wheel loader, which I referred to earlier. This is the water portion of the wheel loader, 45,000. And then there's a mower for field loader, 4,000, and a mower for cells sidewalk machine. Perhaps Mr. Evans could provide some detail on that.
Councilor Bishop, these two machines are for grounds maintenance at the lagoon itself. So we spend about $2,000 a year for mowing at the lagoon. And this is something that I feel like Public Works could take care of in-house with the complement machine we do have. This is not parks or trails where there's a significant or any public viewing. This is just purely maintenance mowing, keeping things down and so that everything works properly and we can inspect. So that's the initial first mower. That'd be the flat plain mower to cut the grass off at the lagoon. The second machine, the second mower would go onto the sidewalk tree and make use of that in the summertime for us. What we have at the cells right now is no way of maintaining the inside edge of the berm or the outside edge of the berm where that gets too steep for the mowers or has gotten too overgrown. And from my experience, that's something that can, once it gets bad, it's hard to come back from, because once those tree roots get established and once the brush gets bigger, those roots, if they penetrate that clay liner, you can't then go cut the tree down. You have to, but then the roots rot and now we find leaks in the cells of the lagoons. So it's something that I think is important to get in, and we could hire a third party with a big mower and do that a few times a year to keep those woody brush from getting down. However, with the sidewalk machine that the village owns, we can get this as an attachment, use it for cell maintenance, We also may be able to use it in a few different places around the village where guardrails, things that aren't currently part of the part of the contracted services. This isn't a finished mower. This isn't going to do anything nice. It's just going to knock. It's just a flail mower that will knock down the rest of the outside. So it's all wastewater because it's necessary to maintain significant lengths of berm up on that site.
So is this like an articulated thing, Peter?
It's on a boom.
So you don't have to put the machine on this, so there's no jeopardy to the operator. You can sit up on top of the hill and reach down.
So how's it getting it done now? It's not? Okay, so we need to get on it.
Next item is a financial plan and rate study of $30,000, and I think there's been approval for that already.
Went to Cal last week.
Last week.
That's the Watson 5-year, not lining up. Things like that.
Flipping over to page. There's WDP generator to automatic of 30,000, and again, a contingent on a grant.
What's that stand for?
Water distribution plant.
Okay.
So you do a permanent installation there, Peter?
That's correct. ISIP opened up a intake for specific to drinking water and drinking water safety. Council in 2021 put away about $9,000 to slowly build up enough to have a generator that is permanently there and automatically engaged. So just to bring council back to speed, the existing generator we have right now is of course diesel and not really designed for the method of use. And we've run into the problem where we thought we could land it for less than 10 grand in 2021 based on initial consultation with suppliers. However, when we ran that through TSSA and code, it was found that that was not the case. So we weren't able to land the existing generator. With the ISIP program, it's another 66% grant, specifically drinking water safety, which would make our share 30,000 to install a permanent new propane generated water plant.
So it's 100,000?
Wow.
Good job.
No kidding. And in the meantime, we have, if the power were to go down, we could just dedicate the one that is it, do we start it on a regular basis? We do maintenance on it. We could bring it down to the water plant, keep things moving until it's not a great plan. And this building here, there's a separate generator now, right?
Correct.
Since it's our EOC. So, if the grant is approved, I'm worried this is gonna get pulled out. Like $30,000, but because we don't have commitments, because we don't have a grant, are we gonna pull that 30 grand out?
You could leave it in, and if you don't get the grant, that money will flow through to reserves at the end of the year.
You could start anyway, even if you didn't get the grant this year, it'd be. You had to go 3 years, you could pay for it pretty well, so.
Is there reserves to cover that? Like, can we go 10 and leave the 10 in and be serious about it? And is there reserves of 20 to cover if we got the grant? Because I think it's really important. I think from a continuity of business, it's really what we need to commit to. But you leave those big dollars in and when we start arm wrestling.
There's 9,000 under this specific reserve for this project in reserves, and we do have other reserves that we could divert for it.
So what do you think? If we put it at 10 and know that we've got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, what are our chances? Is
should
it an
be good.
active application?
it's an active application and, I think on the water side, if I look at the, year-over-year deficit, so I think right now, the funding might come from the operating side, but I know that's a Mr. White question and answer.
But in my mind, you said the key word for the grant application, safety. So,
I would recommend at this point, we leave it in at 30 until you have a look at the operating as well.
Okay.
that's what I think too.
I just don't want to lose it.
It sounds like there's a good chance to get the grant when you talk about safety and that kind of thing.
This is right up their alley. isn't
It
it?
seems to be what motivates the government to do things, so, which is not a bad thing.
Although there's a, right now, showing a $60,905 capital budget deficit. We anticipate there will be monies from the operating side to apply to that. So,
Okay. So how do you feel, Councillor Carney?
Better enough, the numbers were explained, yes.
Anybody have any other questions for the treasurer? He's whetted our appetite waiting for the operations budget.
Now, although there's also a sizable capital deficit on the general side, it's 353,000. There's also monies, there will also be significant dollars on the operating side to apply to that. So,
So hold on
once
until
we get the whole picture, it'll be much, you'll have a lot more information and make decisions on the capital side.
Where does our self-financing perspective fit into this? We talked about carrying that $120,000 charge against the construction here, that eliminating a loan and borrowing from ourselves. Does that fit into this equation here?
That shows up on the operating, I put it under the operating budget
Okay.
because we have agreed to do it. So.
Very good.
any questions, Councillor Roberts? You've been
No,
busy writing there. Can you read your writing?
of course not.
You don't need to read it.
I don't. I'm sure there's been lots of staff in your career that might not agree with you.
So we don't meet again on budget until the 11th of January.
Is that right?
The next meeting is December
December.
14th.
December.
It's in between the two December.
Oh, I got it, yeah, okay, okay, all right. I see.
On the, when we tackle the operating budget, myself, I know I really appreciated seeing, you know, the 3 or 4 years proceeding for each line item, what it was, and is that something we can still do, Bill?
Yes, it'll be along the lines of this one. This goes back to 2018.
That's a good start. Yeah. But I found that a big help.
Yeah, me too.
All right, so you're good, Mr. White? Evans, do you want to add anything more? All right. You good? Okay, so any notices of motion coming forward? Any cross-committee coordination? Any announcements?
I volunteered our committee to help out with this luminaire thing. I'm just wondering whether some of the other councillors
Yes.
want to volunteer manpower too. And we make a project out of it and work together on it with our committees.
I have a tourism committee planned for next week. And I had the Christmas trees for Church Street on that and luminaires, something we could start again. And so I said, I've spoken with Vicky, saying that the tourism has a bit of a budget, not a lot, but we could probably help with some of the finances. And I sent it out to the committee and I've had 3 of them say that they would gladly help out,
Like physically? Oh, good.
physically help out. Yeah.
Neil kind of indicated from Quadrico's grocery said he would supply bags and.
Yeah.
And so there shouldn't be a lot of cost involved. I mean, it should. It's the manpower thing
But
to get the bags ready, to put them out, to light them.
It
and
would be
then
nice
pick
for
them
us
Do you want to do it here, like where there's a big
Yeah.
place you can spread
up.
out?
Yeah, well, yeah, and I was thinking, we used to do it in the afternoon of the day and you're pressed, but if we did them all ahead and had a place we could keep them and then just put them in trays and take them out, the crews could take them out and do them, it'd go a lot
Do it
quicker.
upstairs
Yeah,
in
she
the arena,
had it.
that's bigger.
She had a notice up today looking for small glass jars too, that would protect the candle inside the bag. Because once the candle burns down, quite often it tips over if it's windy and stuff, and the bag all goes up in flames and everything. So she was looking for small
Yeah.
little glass
Yes.
jars to put the candles in.
Yeah, we just put sand in the bottom,
Yeah.
and put the
Oh, yeah.
rotary right in.
She just
and-
mentioned that today,
And it
and I'd
worked
like
fine.
to see part of some money come from municipal organization to it. So that we have a bit of a claim to keep it going year after year, because I don't know whether Neil and Martha will have a 5-year plan to do it, or this is the first year sort of thing.
So I have a different opinion on that, and I'm just one person here. But you've heard me say this a lot of time. I love it when stuff comes from the community from the ground up. I don't like to mess with it. I kind of like to be where Councillor Cardin wants to be part of the machinery moving it out. So if they need money, that's one thing, but I saw that Neil had on his Facebook today that he's proud to be the sponsor. It's not that we don't want, we just don't want to take it over. I feel that there's things popping up in the village that are community driven and like that's what we're hoping for, right? So I'll just leave that with you. So how do we've got time though, right? That's December 19th.
19th is Sunday.
Councillor Roberts, what were you gonna?
On behalf of the Friends of the Library, that's an organization supporting the library financially. But would it be safe to simply poll those members as to their participation in placing these along the sidewalks? So,
Sure,
It's
but
community.
are you not a liaison with the library board?
yeah,
So why don't you ask the
As
library
well.
board? And they'll bring the friends a little, however you do it, but yeah, we could use lots of help.
all right.
More the merrier.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to put out 150 bags right from our home and you could do it in an hour.
The or Maitland used to do it in the subdivision in Maitland. And they had all kinds of rules and regulations as to how far apart to put the, sort of a general idea. Because you go some places and they have the bags like a foot apart, and you go somewhere else and they're 6 feet apart. It's,
General idea of like, something, just do it, just do it. It'll look nice no matter what you do. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, and we're not in charge of it. This is being driven by community members and.
kind of reporting to Vicky and Neil's supplying some of the hardware. So, I mean, it's their show, but let's
Yeah.
just help them out.
Mr. Schneider,
Just a question, when is this project to occur?
19th.
Sunday to night.
Sunday before Christmas.
I think anytime after 4 was the time she had on.
Yeah,
It's 2 minutes.
but like I said, if our fire group had everything ready ahead of time, it just makes everything go so much smoother.
Tell us what you need. I think go to the arena.
Yeah,
It gives us more room. We can spread out. and-
we'll need a few bags of dry sand and some bags and some candles, and that's it. Maybe a few trays to carry them out on.
It'd be nice to do the town hall too.
Yeah, like need Ryan's truck.
Well, the family's already on it. We're good.
Yeah, I said we would, whatever we do is great, just so you know, I volunteered, 'cause Christine Janeway is away. When they were chasing her on the Facebook page to do the museum, she said yes, and she said, well, I can't. So I said that we would pick up the museum and town hall. It's not like we have to do, it. I mean, we'll get it done.
Yeah, a lot of my committee, they're away that day, but they said certainly will participate in a work bee, get things ready ahead of time. So, I mean, if we all work together, I think it'll go pretty soon.
Any other announcements?
Worship,
I have,
we have the town Christmas tree coming on Thursday.
right. I forgot to send that out. Anybody who wants to help decorate at 1, because it's coming in the morning, so you're sure it'll be here by 1.
Sure.
Councillor Roberts, come and help decorate and bring your merry elves with you. Or tall elves
At 1.
at 1.
It's a 10-foot balsam.
10-foot balsam. Mr. Snyder is extremely happy with Mr. White's decision in purchasing this tree because he's excited. He says it's gonna be a beautiful tree because it's a 10-foot balsam.
Thursday at 1.
Thursday at 1. I have an announcement for council. That I am very pleased to let you know that the interviews that you conducted for CAO, your recommended candidate has accepted our offer.
Okay.
And we just, the ink was drying today. So it was great that we could talk about it. She's made her employer aware. So we're very pleased to announce that Ms. Kimberly Westgate has been selected as the next CAO clerk. She brings many years of municipal experience to her role as CAO clerk, and she begins with Westport on January the 27th, 2022. Her comment is, "To say I'm excited to begin this endeavor is an understatement. I acknowledge the importance of this role and anticipate a successful transition with Mr. Snyder and Mayor Jones' guidance. I look forward to serving the citizens, council, and staff of the village of Westport." So Mr. Snyder is going to work with her for the transition. We're leaving it up to him for purposes of our release. We're suggesting February the 11th, 2022 would be Mr. Snyder's retirement date, but he'll call that too. He'll spend the time with the transition and leave when they don't want to see each other anymore. So of course, this is sort of our formal time to say congratulations to Paul. And of course, we will do lots more between now and then, but now that we know that there's somebody coming to sit in that chair, that we wish you and Heather a happy and long and healthy retirement. And there'll be lots more about that. There we go. So yeah, it sounds good. And she knows that you support her. And so that's my announcement for the day. So that then being said, we've done announcements, and any questions from the public or the media?
I suspected after that last announcement, there might be questions from the media, but there is none.
Okay, good. Then we're going to adjourn. I've got, first of all, I've got Councillor Cardy and moved by Councillor Cardy and Councillor Card that the committee of the whole received the 23rd of November 2021 draft capital budget report of the treasurer for information purposes. All in favor? And then our adjournment is moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Brady, that this meeting of the committee of the whole of Westport be adjourned at 7:30 p.m. All in favor? Carried. We're adjourned. Adjourned until Tuesday, I guess, right?